So yeah, I've been lucky enough to speak to probably about 2,000 or so photo booth owners and help them transition from new to kind of, well, a lot of them are six-figure businesses, some of them a bit bigger than that, which is nice. Yeah, open for any questions you guys have got about automation, streamlining, anything like that.
Cool. G'day, I'm Justin. I'm from Australia. I run BoothCon, the photo booth expo that happens down in Australia. We're coming up to our 5th year. I myself have been in the photo booth industry since 2009. I've been a photo booth operator, did that for the first 4 or 5 years, sold that, and then started BoothCon as well as a photo booth insurance business in Australia, which I recently just sold. So yeah, I'm not actively out there boothing anymore, but I certainly still remember the days of doing it. And these days I like to help boothers to help them up their game and increase their business.
I'm Steve. I'm also from Australia. I own a company called the Photo Booth Guys. We're probably, I guess, one of Australia's larger photo booth companies, so we do sort of around 1,000 events a year. And I also work pretty closely with Breeze Software, so I work as a brand ambassador for them. So if you're in anyone that uses Breeze or in the Breeze groups, you've probably maybe seen me post a bit. So yeah, that's me.
It's my dad.
Yeah. Daddy. Sorry.
Yeah. You're the one wearing the bike.
Right.
I'm Zach. I'm from the New York City area, technically New Jersey, but I don't like to say it. I've been photo boothing for about 10 years now, while I also work full-time in the television industry. I'm a solo operator with just part-time staff that do events, and we operate over $500,000 a year now. And yeah.
Hi, I'm Nick. My company's called Box Cheese. We're out of California and Nevada. We've been in the industry since 2010. We do about 400 events a year. I don't know why I'm really on this panel, but very privileged to be with these guys.
I got pulled in last second, so I'm Ismail. I'm probably most known for co-hosting the Super Wizards podcast. I also organize the PBNY.
No questions.
That a lot of people spoke at, and I view my role mostly as interviewing the best people in the industry to find out and learn from them and share those lessons with everyone else.
Hey, I'm Nick. I'm still half asleep. I was back there and I got pulled up here as well, but I'm happy to be here. I work out of the New York City area as well. New York City proper. My prime goal is just to let people from New Jersey admit that that's where they're from. Zach and I
Hold on.
actually went to
If you had
college
to guess what
together.
borough he was from, what would you all say?
Yeah.
Brooklyn.
Exactly. Thank you. Upper East Side.
Vegas
But you're in New Jersey.
Vegas has a New Jersey too, so don't feel bad. It's called Henderson.
Yeah, I have family there.
Damn, it's just bad for
Yeah.
you.
It's okay. Zach is actually one of the people who keeps us creating great work because he constantly is doing awesome, innovative stuff. Our company is OutSnap. We're based out of Brooklyn. Historically, pre-COVID, about 500 events a year nationwide. During COVID, well over 1,000, which is a very different thing than we expected to happen. So, looking forward to hearing the question.
Okay, what was your name?
My name is Nick.
Nick.
That's your question?
And we're done here. Great. Thank you, everybody.
I wrote down box cheese.
Box
Box of cheese. Oh, sorry. Oh.
I do have a question. So I started off with an iPad booth. Actually, I got sold, a friend of mine sold me her DSLR photo booth. And I was like, oh, this is neat. And then the iPad booth came out and I was like, okay, this is so easy. But now that I've had both, now I'm transitioning back to better quality. So, I mean, what do you guys do? Like,
Well, we do a mix, but I think it's sort of ironic that the industry probably started out with webcam-based photo booths, which were notoriously pretty shitty quality, and then everyone realized when DSLRs became a bit more accessible and software allowed control of it, switched to that because the quality was so much better. Then iPads come out, which are probably, the first iPads were probably worse than the original webcams, and so it's this weird sort of two steps forward, one step back, but I think the reason why people use iPads in the first place is because of the perceived simplicity of using them, which has probably made it very easy for people to get started. But I think there's a place for both. I mean, we built our business on quality, so we started very much with DSLR based, and I firmly believe by far it's a superior product to an iPad. The issue with iPad is that you can get amazing images out of an iPad, but you can also get terrible images equally easy, just as easy, if not easier, to get worse images and better images, because it's really all about lighting and control. So I think if you've started with iPad and you're serious about, I guess, what you're doing, I would maybe see the iPad as a launch pad to quickly teach yourself camera control and get into, DSLR or mirrorless to up your quality.
I have a kind of different take on iPads than I think most in the industry do. I bought a bunch of them back in the day, coming here over the years and whatnot. I don't really advertise them, especially to wedding clients. I don't think the quality's there. I don't think they should be used with a backdrop. That's really not what they're for. They're front-facing selfie cameras. They're meant to be taken from this far away, and that's why everyone goes, what iPad booth has the best lighting? Well, they all have the same ring light. It's all just stock. But it's as soon as you get 5-6 feet away from your light source, you get an awful halo effect. You get degrading quality and more grain because you need more ISO to boost. So then people start adding side lights and this and that, and all of a sudden you have a setup that A, looks gaudy, and B,
it's more complicated.
It's more complicated than just getting a nice, clean, modern DSLR booth that you could literally have the same settings every event, and if you're using a strobe light, no matter your conditions, it could be this room, it could be pitch black, your photo's gonna look the same from event to event. That being said, I use them as dropship methods, and Steve does a lot of the same too, mainly to corporate clients that don't want to fly me out to a Vegas convention, but they want something, inside their expo. So we will mail them with instructions, and they set it up, and they use it as a lead generator. Use it for permanent installs in offices, those kind of things, but generally I don't promote them.
Do you sell them as an add-on for weddings? So like
I don't.
Area or next
So
to the floor?
that I was going to say that, so it's great you mentioned it. I don't, but a close friend of mine in the city does, and he makes a killing off of it. He brings his DSLR booth, and he calls it the dance floor photo booth, and he brings an Aura or whatever he has, and he uses it with a battery pack and literally puts it on the dance floor. They set it up, and he leaves it alone, and it's like a $400 or $500 add-on to his already $1,500 package. It's 3 extra minutes of work for him. People aren't using a backdrop, so they're right up on it. The quality's awesome, and he doesn't have to bring an extra attendant or anything. It just runs, and he collects, $400 or $500 extra bucks every night.
I think ultimately it's about matching a product with a client as well. The question isn't what's best; it's what does the client want. If the client wants something that the iPad can deliver, then the iPad's the best thing to use.
I mean, Nick's, your business is like 90% iPads, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think firmly there's a tool for each event, and it's knowing what your client wants, and a little bit, it's guesswork, right? You're having a conversation with someone who doesn't know how to do photography, they just know the realm of what they want to achieve. So being able to ascertain those conversations is the most important, and then you can decide what tool it is. So we found kind of on the opposite on the wedding side, operating in New York City is very expensive. If we're doing one of our big sit-in DSLR booths, it feels amazing. We have a huge strobe. That feeling is great, but it costs us $800 to get that tune from an event. So someone has to pay for that, and it's not us. So when you have those conversations with the clients about what they're trying to achieve, each of the booth has a different feeling that it gives off as well. So if you want that close the curtain, we can do that with an iPad. But if you want that strobe, we can't do that with an iPad. So it's really knowing what you're selling and what the client wants to buy. So that's sort of a long-winded way of saying most of our clients, when they see the price differentiation between the options, are very happy to get a $1,500 option that gets them 90% of the way to their dream versus going $2,500, $3,500, $4,500.
Nick, did you say close the curtain?
Yeah, like on a sit-in photo booth.
So I doubt many people even have those anymore. What are you using?
We bought the Northeast Regional Magnolia photo booth a handful of years ago, and we use those for a lot of our installs. If they want that sit-in feeling, or for a lot of our weddings, in Brooklyn, we have a lot of people in old-timey-ish venues wanting to really keep that aesthetic up. So even though the inside of that photo booth may be operated with a LED and an iPad, they still want aesthetically something that looks like that.
So you can achieve better results because they're in close proximity with
Well, yes, because you have a limited
With
distance,
light.
but also if someone wants video, that's the tool to do that. So video confessionals or animated GIFs and boomerangs. You know, if you want to give the end user choices, a lot of that stuff isn't as easy to pull off with a DSLR. Also, the training level of the staff is very different.
If I may jump in here, because I think the question was iPad versus DSLR, and I think the deeper question is how much does quality matter? And I find this comes up all the time. And I imagine most people in this room are trying to grow their business, or they're going from step 1 to step 2, or step 2 to step 5. I think most of the people up here are the higher numbers of those steps. So you're more obsessing over quality because you're at that level. But for everybody that's in this room, how much should they obsess over quality? Is that the most important thing that they should be focused on, or is there other things that they should be doing? It's a common question that I run into all the time.
I think it's maybe to do with your brand that you're trying to build as well. I mean, you don't have to, I mean, you know, not high quality is not the be all and end all to running a business. I mean, you can have a low quality product and be completely successful with that. I mean, that's a business model, you know, and there's plenty of that too. I mean, we have plenty of clients that actually don't care about quality at all. All they want, they're ticking a box, they need something, they just want to collect email addresses or whatever it might be, and they don't even look at the photos afterwards, couldn't care less.
Well, piggybacking on that, quality over quantity, how do you, since you guys have started as boothers, how do you go from doing the backyard, you know, helicopter flying over the, the party to just more corporate type events, you know? Was there a point where you said, hey, I'm not doing house parties anymore?
Well,
Because I've been there and I'm like, okay, I'm not supposed to wear red, what does that mean? You know, and I mean, yeah, okay. I mean,
Like gay related? What's your market?
I'm in Central California, and I showed up to a party, and the lady said, just make sure you don't wear any red. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? I'm telling my husband, he was like, yeah, you should go alone.
I'll talk on that. I want to jump back to one point off of our friends over here. Like 5-6 years ago, something happened that I think clicked for me when it came to quality. And we're very minimalist. I have like little prop signs. I don't do goofy hats anymore. I used to have 12 feet of table of just the most shit you could imagine. And I realized when I got an email from a bride that her father passed away 2-3 weeks after the wedding. And I had this perfectly exposed DSLR photo of the two of them without a stupid hat on, without a sign, and it was something that I could provide them, you know, a full resolution photo that she could keep forever. And I think that stuck with me, and was sort of the catalyst to saying, like, quality is the most important to me, because you never know when those moments in your life are going to happen, and you can make someone's day with it. Versus, you know, if you don't know how to do proper lighting and it's grainy and whatnot, and maybe it isn't a photo that they want to hang on their wall at the end of the day. Back to your question on the corporate stuff, I think a lot of it is perception of reality and perceived wealth and whatnot. We charge a minimum of $1,500 to go out the door, generally with an iPad or with a DSLR. I don't care which. That's the number that makes me get out of bed. And maybe it's because I work full time as well. Like, I can afford that, and I can say, you know, well, I value my time or my employees' time, so this is the price it takes. But when you start offering your services at higher numbers, you know, be it $1,500 or $20,000, a company says, well, this person must have their shit together. They know what they're doing. Not being cheap doesn't always help. Yes, there are companies that will be like, well, this person's $600, that's all we really want to spend, great. But then there are plenty of corporations that go, this one's $600, this one's $1,500. They probably know what they're doing more, and I don't want to fuck this up, so I'm just going to go with the one that costs a little more. It's not my money. We have budgets to spend. We use it or we lose it by the end of the quarter. So let's just go with these guys. They must be the best.
But how are you attractive? But how do those clients find
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Cherie who made my website. She was looking for the plug there.
Sell them or do them right now.
No, but-
Anyway, no, what I'm saying though is one of the reasons why you attract those clients is one, because you're at events where high-end.
Yes.
And two,
You have the
they
product
want-
imagery, you know, people see, you go on my website, Chrissy Teigen's the first photo. Well, Chrissy Teigen can use this photo booth, must be good enough for us, His photo booth was on The Tonight Show with Prince
Harry, Margot Robbie. Yeah.
So my Peppa one, where I did for Salt and Peppa, I need to put that on the front page of my page.
if you're allowed to and they didn't NDA you or you have the rights to use it.
Yes,
yeah.
you put it up there and take it down if they ask. That's what I do. You have to.
Blame your work guy.
But
You have
also, go ahead.
You have to look like you do the work you want to do.
That, and you have to properly run your business. Get rid of your Yahoo or your Gmail account. Your email needs to be at your domain. You need to have an actual domain. It's not, studioz.wix.com. Pay the $30 for your domain. Operate it properly. And the more you add to that site, the better it is. Make it optimized for mobile. Like, just go down the SEO rabbit hole and learn about it. I mean, I still don't even know a ton about it, but like when COVID happened and virtual became a thing, I said to Shri, I need a site up. Can you make me a page that's all about virtual photo booths? And she did. I paid her for it. And Steve and I's page and Nick's ranked like 1, 2, and 3 worldwide because we got into it early, and it saved our businesses during COVID. We didn't market StudioZ, photobooths.com. We didn't. I mean, I don't know, Nick, if you did paid ads. I never ran a paid ad on Google during that time.
So we did do paid ads at the very beginning. So one of the things that I said a minute ago is knowing what your clients want, and the best way to find that out is to ask them, right? And so at the very beginning of COVID, when everyone was sitting on their hands having no idea what to do, I was on the phone talking to my clients, and we had a client who, pretty uptight client, and they said, hey, we have you booked for our, the 5th year we're doing this thing. Can you do it virtually? And I said, what do you mean? And they're like, can you do a virtual photo booth? And in my head, I thought that was the dumbest idea I've ever heard in my life. And then I got on a call with someone else, and they said, well, we don't want to cancel. Can you do a virtual photo booth? And after about 4 of those conversations, I said, I'm just going to go ahead and see what happens if I Google that. And no one was on it.
Yeah.
And so I bought the search terms, and for the only time in the history of Google, for $500 a month, I had 40 phone calls with new clients a week. Now that would cost $50,000. It was a unique moment when no one was spending advertising money, and people were all sitting around trying to figure out what to do. Everyone. So it was a really unique moment. But that little accident, it's not really an accident. That was my clients telling me what they wanted and me acting on it. And so going back into whether it's this kind of booth or that kind of booth, in the corporate world, less a party or a non-corporate party. KPIs, key performance indicators, are what people want for a marketing event. And it's like, what's your goal? And sometimes the goal is we literally just want email addresses so we can spam people. And other people say, well, we want hundreds of pieces of content to be shared on Instagram stories and Snapchat. And those are very different challenges, right? Ironically, the sharing is closer to what you're going to do at a wedding, right? You want to make fun content that people are excited about. And so you spend a lot of time with the client determining what is going to actually meet that KPI. And so if it's an iPad booth, sure. If it's a DSLR, or if you need a video rig, the sky's the limit on what the tool you need to create or use to capture that KPI is. It's often, after all that garble I just gave you, it's often we just want email addresses, really, for corporate.
I think from a newbie point of view, that is, most people I speak to are people with one group that are relatively new. And when they say, I need to charge more for corporate, and ask why, they don't have an answer to that. They've heard that corporate's worth more money.
My corporate and my social start at the same price.
Exactly right.
An event's an event to me.
Exactly.
Corporate can go higher based off their needs, but at the bare bones, it's the same setup.
Yeah.
If I'm at a and personally, weddings should be more in my book because I have to deal with drunk assholes all night, or kids. I did a mitzvah the other day, and they put I was doing a 360, and they put a fucking basketball toss next to my setup, and in the first 5 minutes they broke my Wi-Fi adapter. I looked over and I was like, why is that over there? I'm like, fuck me. Thankfully it still worked, but
I think it's a really common misconception when you enter the industry that corporate is just a different person that pays. It's a different product, it's a different service. And if you don't understand that as a basic concept, then that's probably where you're going wrong, and you're not going to appeal to a corporate market.
A good corporate client's easy to deal with because they have everything, their shit together. They give you all the assets. But they're not, it's a smooth bump in, or everything's all organised and planned.
yeah.
You can also get annoying corporate customers that are a lot more work.
Are you guys with corporate though? You're not just dealing with the corporate client, you're dealing with the agency directly with them.
Well, both.
And during COVID, it's actually been a lot more direct to client. There's
Yeah.
been a lot less agency, and I'm starting to see that swing change just a teeny bit. So we're getting now introduced from our main client back to their agencies who are picking up again.
Just to add another perspective here, because I totally agree with what everyone said. I think what I've seen is the most important thing is to have your branding target the client you want. But I also remember in the very beginning, lugging enclosed booths over grassy backyards to the back corner. Like I remember going through that and coming to PBX and like, what am I doing wrong? Look at these guys charging $1,500. How do I get there? The other thing that I've seen to get there is that you have to go through that crap. Because like I had a wedding that me and my brother did, and it was a regular wedding, and the bride ended up being like this huge event planner for a major financial company in New York City. She recommended us. We had all the tri-state area, these big banks doing all their events for that one wedding that you didn't know was going to be that important. And then once you start doing a few of those, it leads to more and more. So I totally agree, not to take with a different perspective, that you got to go through some of that crap. And somehow, after doing enough events, after doing it enough times, somebody somewhere will give you that opening, and then you got to seize that opportunity.
So your transition from going from backyard to more corporate was just basically that person trying to
That was
identify
the key.
you.
That was the
But
key person.
did anybody collectively say, no, I'm not doing backyard weddings, and
No.
or did
No.
did you still do one?
Yeah, I mean, what's been really interesting in the New York market, and I think I'd love to hear down the line, in New York, we do not have corporate events booked until the fall. We have virtual events booked into 2023 for corporate, and now we have dozens of weddings coming in, wanting things as soon as next week and through 2023. And for me, I would love to not do weddings, because something like Steve said, like the corporate client knows what they want, and they know how to book a vendor. They say, are you available on this day? Can you do the thing that we know you do? Cool, okay, here's your money, show up. With a wedding, and it's like a show of hands here, on a scale of 1 to 10, how many emails do you typically exchange with a bride or groom about the ampersand, the end sign, or plus sign? Really, like, our average wedding is 70 emails back and forth.
Yeah.
And our
Something wrong there.
cost is less than that.
3 days prior.
The thing
Send
that
your
I
valley
will
grill.
stress,
Cut the bit out.
which came down the line here, is that most of our corporate clients have come from weddings. Never have we had a corporate client that's like, hey, you're doing a really great job at this Pepsi event, can you do our wedding? It doesn't go the other way usually. And in the rare chance it does, they know that our rates are at this level. And so we stopped spending time and energy on racing to the bottom on doing a $300 wedding in New York City and making it worth our while to have those 70 emails with a smile on our face. And so if you want to pay our rates, we're going to smile all the way through, no matter how many times you tell us that our world-class graphic design is incorrect. It's like that comes with the territory. So I think for us, it's a gamble that, well, also really important, it keeps my staff busy every weekend. And as a result, they're available when I need them for a corporate activation. And we also do get corporate jobs from the wedding.
So a question about activations, the decks, that's my thing. Like with a wedding, I can easily book a wedding, I have a system for that. But like for companies, sometimes they want like an all-out accurate activation. Do you guys like create some kind of deck
Yeah.
Yeah.
each time?
If it's worth the time, if you think the client has the money and it's something you want to do,
You
sure.
get sales materials for whatever.
That with a budget though.
I think the key bit on this is identifying your customer really early on.
Yeah.
So I don't know about you guys, but for me, that's a different journey right from the very outset.
Yeah.
Where I find them, my top of funnel, my middle funnel, my bottom of funnel is completely different from a corporate versus a private. And if at any stage I realise that corporate just wants a party,
Yeah.
then they're going to go into my party workflow.
Yeah.
If I know at the beginning that I'm going to get that budget conversation pretty early on, and I know exactly what my next steps are from that. But if you haven't established a budget and you're going to put in 20 hours of work, then to create a decent pitch deck, then you've probably already missed a step somewhere.
But I actually think though doing a deck is probably a good way to get into winning corporate work, and might be worth putting the effort in initially, because if your website currently is heavily social based and you don't really have any corporate examples, well, a deck is a perfect opportunity to create something that looks corporate and tailored towards that event, because you can do mock-ups and things like that, and you can pull example, not from other photo booth companies, but you can take inspirational photos, brand imagery from that company that, you know, and try and pull it together and show them what a custom backdrop might look like, or what a wrapped booth might look like. We have 3D versions of all our products that we can, and we use Adobe Dimension, and we can throw together complete mock-ups of a complete setup and show it fully branded quite quickly and easily. And that, you know, straight off the bat, you show that to a client and they're going to go, oh, well, actually these guys sort of, you know, look like they don't, you know, maybe know what they're doing, even if you don't, because you can. It's just perception, basically. And yeah, that's right. But I do agree. Once you're doing, you know, got corporate work coming in, it's not worth doing a deck for every single inquiry.
Sounding like a complete newbie. Can you explain what a deck is?
Like a presentation,
Like a PDF.
a PowerPoint,
Yeah.
whatever.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
But
That's my okay,
going-
so why is it called a deck? I'm sorry. I'm like,
It's just a marketing term.
Yeah.
Going,
Like just like what you
So,
have in your.
so it's your version of a mock-up, or
Right.
So, okay.
But it would be your like when you have a.
You can make it on
DSLR
Canva.
booth, an iPad
Like-
booth, a Vogue booth.
Just so they can see what the setup
Yeah.
would
It
look
is,
like.
Yeah.
it's like a static version of your website.
Yeah.
It's like if you were to give, think of
Which
it
sometimes
as
is
like
hard when
a
everything you do is
printed
motion
flyer
based.
Right. That they can look at your stuff. It's a digital version of that. So it's PDF or.
Like a vision board.
Going back though, I think everyone in here today should go on their website and change their contact form to have a minimum budget or your budget range. So that's step one. I only create decks if I know the client has some funds, because when they send me a lead, it'll say estimated budget $1,500 to $2,500. That's my like lowest on there, I believe. And it also first tells them this is the lowest you're going to spend. If that's not okay, get away. But B, I can see what they want. And if they say, like, I have a 5-day conference and the budget says $2,500 to $3,000, I'm not going to waste my time on a full deck. I may say, like, hey, just so you know, 5 days of what you're looking for with 360 is going to be a minimum of around this price. If you'd like to chat more, I'm happy to give you a full proposal. But it can go both ways. I had a client last week fill out a lead for a virtual photo booth set up a meeting, said her budget was $1,500. I start going through my whole Zoom presentation and she's like, this is all great, but our event's actually in person. And I'm like, oh. And then she started listing what she wanted, and all of a sudden now we're at 15 grand and I have to go to Atlantic City next week to do a walkthrough with her. So it can go both ways, but at least you get some sort of baseline as to what a client wants.
And also something to note is their sales tools, right? So the first time you put together your wedding presentation, it was a lot of work. But when you have these things, if you think of it like a menu, you're like, this person's interested in this. So you pull that slide from your last presentation or your bare deck, pull it down, and now it's so simple as just dropping a logo on that page and it looks like you created it for them. So there's varying degrees of it, but don't be intimidated by creating a sales tool, because it's like any process. It's hard at the beginning, and then it's something that you have on hand and you train someone else to do, or, you know.
Oh, actually, on that training, something that was going to be my next question. I don't know if I don't want to interrupt that thread, but training other people. How do you guys? This is my next challenge. So I'm a sole proprietor. I do pretty much all photo booths myself. I taught my kids to do them, but now my kids both have full-time jobs because COVID is over and everything. So now I'm at the level where, if I want to make more money, like the one speaker earlier, she was saying, like, if you want to make more money, you need to hire staff. It's the only way you're going to be able to do it. How do you transition into hiring staff and training people that don't turn into your competitors?
That's the worst. It's the worst.
Because she was talking about.
Well, let me just adjust the way you thought about that, because a lot of people have this fear, I'm going to train them, they're going to be competitors. I don't view it that way. And I've seen this with my father-in-law with his construction business. He's like people under his wing. And eventually, like all of us, everyone wants a better life. They want to go into business themselves. That's not a competitor to me. That's someone I can still work to. That's a partner. That's a future partner. So I wouldn't view that so negatively. I'd want to train them as best as I can. And if they want to go and spread their own wings, now I have someone else to work to that I know can handle it because I trained them. I don't know if anyone else agrees.
I think it's also a bit of a stretch to jump from photo booth attendant to starting a photo booth company when they're earning
Well, I do
$20 an hour.
So that's part of why, like, that's easier for people.
But-
but even same with the phone, but just hiring staff in general, like, how do you
It sucks.
find?
It sucks.
Yeah, the training.
You're not helping me here.
No, I think just owning it, like, it took me the longest time to be okay with firing people. Because
Got there yet?
I think she needs the people to fire first. She'd love to be firing people.
If you think about it in their hiring process, it's a lot easier because nothing is permanent. You bring someone on, you train them, and if it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit, and you go to the next. And it's like any other ideation, like the more you do it, the better you'll ascertain what you as an individual need in that person too. My business has changed tremendously because we're doing very little in person at the moment. And finding that new group of people was very difficult because I finally figured out how to hire the person who go to the event. So I think that talking to people, training them, and also realizing that you get 3 strikes is really a very important
I
thing.
think it's good to be prepared for that part too, and hiring. Not that you want to let people go, but
No,
you
well,
understand.
you never want to let people go because you spend so much time hiring them.
There's also the barrier that you don't have to tell them where you get the media, where you buy the printers, where you buy the booths. You know, like there's steps to get to growing the business, and we're all here. We know, but your employees don't know where to buy the paper from.
Yeah, I think the competitor part of it is like the least of it.
So the biggest challenge is just finding.
Yeah.
So look for brand ambassadors because they're already people persons. But when I started hiring staff, and I have 2 to 3, and it's still a very hard topic for me. Being in New York is also very hard because I don't have an office. So like when I train them, it's either they have to come to Jersey or they have to meet me at a storage unit, and like we go through things. Like it's not ideal. But the best piece of advice I got when I hired my first staff, it was this guy Todd out in California, and he's been in the business for years, and he had one of his employees that was moving to New York, and he was like, "She's great, give her a job." And I hired her, and I said, "What do you pay her?" And he goes, $250 an event. I was like, "Wow, that's a lot." And he goes, "It's worth it. Pay your employee what they're worth, and they will want to work, and they will want to do a good job. They won't call out because that money to them is amazing. It's not, minimum wage." And at the time, so I'm getting a minimum of $1,500 an event. I was white labeling out to my friend John in the city at $750 to $850 an event. So hiring an employee at $250 was netting me more money at the end. So when you look at it that way, I'm like, that's great. She's happy. I'm on my couch. I don't have to do this wedding on a Friday night, and I can book 3 weddings now in the same night. And my employees are so appreciative of it. It's $250 for a 3-hour event, including their setup and breakdown. Some events take longer to get to, some are shorter, and then they make $50 an hour if it's a 4-hour event, 5-hour event, etc. And then I have one employee now that has a car, and she'll go to Jersey or upstate New York for me, and I throw an extra $75 in tolls for her, and she's happy. I mean, is it the perfect way? Maybe not. Every market's different, but it works for me. And if I'm not working on a Friday night after I worked at 5 in the morning that day, like, I'm happy.
Okay, so how did you train her? Did you do one-on-one sessions?
I mean,
Bring them to an
my
event.
stuff's pretty streamlined now with what we do, that like it's just minor tech things. They come along to one event, set it up, and then I watch them do one event, and then they pretty much go running.
Yeah,
I'm on FaceTime if they need anything. I mean, most things are pretty easily fixable.
I do YouTube videos. That's what I have to teach how to load a printer so many times with such a big team. I'm like, just watch this YouTube video.
Yeah, we set little QR code stickers and everything as well.
Yeah, we
smart.
do
Yeah,
it.
on a printer, so if
Yeah.
they forget how to change, they just scan it, take the YouTube video.
Yeah.
We use a product. We use a product called Manula. I think Manula.com. It's a help guide. You can, and we've basically written a complete manual that covers everything from company policies through to how to change paper, how to put up a backdrop, how to assemble the booth, troubleshooting, and where applicable we have videos and photos, and it's like someone could really just step in and read the manual.
So do you sell that?
Do I sell it? Well, no, it wouldn't be relevant to your business because it's all tailored to our equipment. But our process for when we hire a new staff member, they tag along to an event with one of our other staff just to see if they even like it. And if they do, then we get them in for training session at one of our warehouses for a couple hours. Then they go with a staff member for their first event, and they do the setup, and someone's just supervising to make sure they're okay. And then sometimes we do 2 events like that, and then after that, off they go.
Training's all paid, you pay them.
Wait, by law we have to in Australia.
So how are you finding your staff?
Right.
Indeed, are you networking? Same thing. Who has people? Like, how do you?
I personally like networking, just because I like referrals. So,
They can refer
so like I
to
hired
what they
someone, and
trust,
then she's
right?
like, my friend also does photography, so like then I brought her in.
There's
Where
2
are you
steps.
networking and not parties?
Tinder mostly.
I knew you looked familiar.
It's true though.
That's more corporate clients. Y'all laugh. Some of my best corporate clients came from dating sites. So.
I have a virtual question for you guys. Do you ever sell those at an event that actually, like say a concert or something like that, where you want just some other cohesive activity to promote the event? And if so, how do you market that?
So are you saying before the event, during the event, after the event?
But before, during, and after, yeah. So.
Yeah, so I think it comes back to that same thing I was talking about, is knowing what your client wants and what their activation is. What was really tricky for us in virtual, and I think probably similar, was there's so much education involved in it.
Yeah.
People generally know what a photo booth is, what permutation of it is. With the virtual, for us, we have thought about it a lot more like creating web design, and a process very similar to creating a web experience. And some of those have translated into hybrid before, during, and after. One of the things that is very tricky with a virtual tool is the call to actions around it. And if you just have a QR code on the wall over here, chances of people interacting with it very slim. You have a QR code over here that says scan this, 5 out of 10 people are going to win $1 million. People are going to scan it, right? So it's creating that reason for people to participate, and that is extendable into any type of event.
I will play devil's advocate on that though. In my view, client wants virtual, great. I make it for them, they approve it. I don't give a shit if they take 500 photos or 1 photo.
Correct.
I did what I needed to do. It's on them to blast it to their employees, to their clients, etc. Like to me, that's the best thing about virtual. Like, and I have had clients that do 5 photos and they still hire me for another one. They don't care. They're
ticking a box.
They're ticking a box.
Yeah, and I think ticking the box, I think that's something that there are agencies that we work with in the experiential world where I call them checkbox agencies, where I know the type of work that they do. They bring in a client, the client's been to their event, and the client who shows up there wants catering, they want mimosas, they want a photo booth, and they want salt and pepper play, right? Like, it's checkbox. They just went down and they did this.
It's funny you say that because so many corporate clients.
The agency I'm talking about.
Oh man, I don't know. So many corporate clients and planners that I work with, they don't give a shit about like what our output is, like if 50 people attended or not. They're more into the photographer they hired, getting the clean shots of everything that they set up so they can put together a wrap-up presentation that lies about how great the event was. Right. It's so weird, but that's what they do. Yeah. But going back to virtual, I would give this piece of advice, and you may not want to hear it. If you haven't done virtual yet, don't do it. I think the ship sailed. The ship has sailed. The SEO is gone on that. I don't think it's really for weddings anymore. It ticked the box in 2020.
At 360 that too.
Yeah, well, yeah. Focus elsewhere. Focus on something more, because virtual is going to slowly. I mean, it's definitely slowed down for us. I still have clients that, say, can we re-up this at $4,000 for another week? Great, let's go. But I mean, it's not what it used to. And
no, it's not what it used to be, and I think on our side, full transparency, we're really conceptualizing what those tools can do moving forward, and how to provide new types of entertainment through some of those new media that people are used to. Like the QR code has been around 20 years.
Yep.
And people didn't know how to use it until they couldn't eat food. Without saying that's ever existed. So it's how do you kind of conceptualize those?
Best thing that came out of COVID.
Yeah. And not having to talk to servers as much. So I think that there's the long answer is that there's a lot of really cool things that can be done. Whether or not you want to spend the time and energy building a product around it, because you're not building anything physical like a physical photo booth, but you're building all of the marketing materials, you're building the sales presentations, you're spending X amount of dollars on marketing to get the phone to ring. So there's a lot of things that go into that. And it's not too different from just trying to get the corporate client, right? So
Are there any virtual booths?
Resting battery here.
Or do they all have to be emailed?
yeah, you can text
On a virtual
Hang on,
booth?
pull it. No. See, that's that.
It was 94 when we started.
Yeah.
If nobody else has
This is-
a question, could you guys talk about permanent installs and how you sell those? In my mind, I always think, why wouldn't they just buy it themselves?
Because I don't want to manage it.
Yeah.
I don't want to learn, be responsible for it.
Your staff being competitors, like they don't want to pay someone else to do that.
Yeah, there's two types of clients on that. There's a small mom and pop shop that could likely benefit from it more than most other people. And those people will have the wherewithal to do it themselves. And they also won't have the wherewithal to pay what it makes sense for me to do it for. And then you have a casino that is bursting at the seams with money and doesn't know where to spend it, and you can do something cool. You know, like, I think that it's the same two types of clients. Going into 2020, that was going to be our main focus, as you imagine things change. And we're right now trying to figure out the Venn diagram again of what makes sense for OutSnap and what makes sense for a client to sell a product where it makes sense for everyone. And we haven't found that number personally on installs.
We're definitely going to concentrate on permanent installs going forward. I think it's a lucrative business. We put a permanent booth into Nike store in Sydney for 6 months for...
That's Nike.
Nike, sorry. And they paid about 50-something thousand for 6 months.
Just devil's
Yeah.
advocate on that, most people want to spend nothing.
That's right. That's true.
So-
That is true. I don't expect that every time, but you know, when there's, you can. I mean, Hannah, who works for me over here, strong woman. She, I think, has a knack for sniffing when clients have money, and then crafting a proposal accordingly. Well, whatever, it works.
So if you're marketing a permanent install, what are you selling the benefits? Say for a hotel lobby.
Well, I think the benefits are what they need, which is probably data collection, most likely. We don't. I mean, I think what we're probably figuring out with permanent installs, we're not going to have. Here's our permanent install product, and it is this much. It is tell us what you need, and we will build something custom, because I think that's just the nature of a permanent install, that not everyone just wants a box in a corner. They might want something mounted to the wall. They might actually have something they've created that they just want you to insert your computer into it. And that's what we did for Nike E. They had this, and I say the 50 grand, it sounds like a lot, and it was, but they were a pain in the ass to deal with, because they had built this big column in the store without properly consulting us with the size, and then said we need a 55-inch screen to fit in this column. And I'm like, all right, well that's fine, because there's plenty of 55-inch touchscreens around. Turns out they had just sort of looked at the diagonal, the measurements of a standard 55-inch screen without factoring in the bezel. Finding one that had a very slimline bezel that would fit in the column was almost impossible, and the only one I could find, we had to import from the States.
And how did you do that, Steve?
And I had to get it, and that I had to get it shipped to Zach's house, because the distributor wouldn't ship it direct to Australia. The client paid about $3 grand in shipping just to get the screen to Australia, and I was on the phone. I had to stay up till like 1, 2 in the morning, 5 nights in a row just to get this stupid screen moving because the distributor was just painful to deal with, and the client are all and they're all just oblivious to what's going on, and I'm trying to explain to them how much hassle they have caused by not, you know, and they're like, oh, you know, okay, they didn't care. They're just that.
I was just going to say, so would you factor that? Would you take that out of your profit, or you know, tell them about the problem?
No, we charge them extra. Yeah, we charge them extra for it, because I'm not wearing an extra $3,000 in shipping costs because you didn't
factor it in when you were planning.
Yeah.
I just want to piggyback quickly because everyone seems to put corporate work on a pedestal. Like, I want to figure out how to do that, and you may find out you really don't want to deal with that. Like, oh, the numbers seem nice, but maybe you don't want to deal with that. You have 5 nights in a row.
No, that's right.
It's not right. Like maybe someone wants to do the backyard party instead of the corporate event. So find out what you want. It's not one formula that everyone should be pursuing.
But that's like, everyone thinks corporate is just more money. Like I said before, my social and my corporate is the same amount. So if your bread and butter is social events, just raise your prices on social events and be the leading social event provider in your market.
Except that you won't sell $50,000 installs.
Sure.
But you got to work. I mean, that kind of thing. You have to work for your money. So the other thing is, they wanted a DSLR. They sent us a mock-up, and the mock-up was the 55-inch screen embedded into this column with a DSLR camera mounted on the column. And I said to them when I saw the mock-up, you really should have that camera enclosed because it's in a retail store. People are going to touch it, and it kind of looks ugly. Like, no, that's, you know, the agency crafted the idea, and that's what they wanted. That's what had been signed off.
You know,
We install it, and the client, Nike, turn up to look, and they go, we hate that camera. That looks so ugly. And they're like, we need to put it in the column. The problem is the column, the facade, there's only about that much space. So there's no way you could get a DSLR camera into that. So on the fly, we had to switch it over to a webcam booth. So, you know, now they're paying $50,000 for a webcam photo booth.
Y'all also have to remember, when Steve says all this stuff, Steve's a programmer. Steve knows every software on the market. If you pigeonhole yourself to, like, I'm a Salsa user or I'm a Breeze user, you need to know how to use every tool available to you, because if you want these $50,000 numbers, it's not just, hey, I'm going to bring my Salsa booth and put it in a corner. He's custom creating things down to the UI interface, to how the electronics are run, how they're mounted. There's so much more to this than something you can just buy off a shelf across the hall this week.
Yeah, and look, and it just was one issue led to another because of they hadn't, and then they didn't want a hole drilled any bigger than 35 mil, so it's 1.5 inches for the cutout, and then the webcams shoot quite wide. So what do you think happened? You're seeing half the inside of behind the facades, and then have to try and figure out how to mask out. And I mean, it gets, I don't know, they probably take like 2 photos a day on it, but they. You know?
And it has the rock branding behind it.
Hey.
It has the Adidas branding.
Oh, yes. And the other thing I had to point out to them, it wasn't, the client was Nike, but it was in a Foot Locker store, which is like Foot Locker here, right? Okay. And they set it up, and they set it up right in front of an Adidas, an Adidas display. And I had to point out to them, I said, you realize that, and this is the other dumb thing, they didn't even want their branding on the output. And I said, you sure you don't want branding on the output? No branding, just want it clean. Like, you realize that there's an Adidas logo in every single photo because you've set it up in front of an Adidas thing. Honestly. I don't know if they've moved it. I was like, we have told you, there's nothing more we can do about it.
I have a rule of thirds, and that's where I give advice 3 times.
Yeah.
And on the 3rd time, your idea is the best idea. And just make sure you document it and you go through. And also, I think something else, on a $50,000 opportunity, it sounds amazing, but there's a lot of lost $50,000 opportunities. So it does average out, right? So that $50,000 client is paying for every $50,000 client you didn't get.
Yeah.
So that's something really important to keep in mind.
And not every perm install.
No, that's right.
We've just set up a bunch in the UK for bars, which is obviously the opposite end of the spectrum. They don't have 50 grand to spend. Most of them after COVID have hardly anything. And we went out and pitched to loads of them and got absolutely nothing. Which again has to get paid by someone somewhere. Right. Like I had to pay those people to go and do those pitches. And now we've ended up back in all of those bars, but we just went up one step. So we found someone that was doing a campaign about drink spiking, and we pitched to her, and then she's pitched back to the same bars and said that they didn't want it, and now we're back in those bars. So there's when you think there's a lost opportunity, there's sometimes there's another opportunity coming. And yet, what we found was the people that went for it were people that already had marketing campaigns to feed. So they knew they needed data, and the reason they needed data was because they needed traffic, and they needed traffic because they already had a marketing plan. So what I got my guys to do then was to go and find every bar with a certain size turnover that already had a marketing campaign, and send out the same pitch deck that we already had to all of those bars, because we were able to narrow down our market a little bit easier. But those, we're talking like £500, so what's that, $750 a month for the in-store, and a retainer fee. So it's not 50,000, but we rent one iPad and stick on a wall. Like it's a different, yeah.
So your retainer fee, is that what? Because sometimes it goes to my question is like, I'm so nervous about having something there that my expensive equipment, and not being there. So you guys are doing permanent installs, or like how do you?
I remember being very precious about every iPad that I bought because it cost a lot of money, and I literally don't know how many iPads I have.
Yeah.
Right? Like I have 70 iPads.
You have a bucket.
Right?
There's a bucket.
I should have one I bought over the holidays just sitting in a drawer.
So if somebody breaks one, though, do you charge them, or is that just your cost of business?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on whatever the arrangement is with that facility. Like, we have some places where we've literally forced ourselves into these venues to get a case study or something, right? So we're not going to charge them for something where we're essentially the client begging for the space, right? And then on the flip side, if you're in a space where we do two versions. One, you can buy everything up front, and then it's not our problem to broke it. The other is you lease the equipment from us, and then there's kind of a varying degree on who fixes what depending on what's broken. But I think you have to, it's the old adage, like you have to spend money to make money, and that ends up being, like, if you see the numbers on the amount of retail goods that are stolen from every store every year, it's just a watch for them, it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Someone's paying for it, right? And it just goes back to what we were saying before. So it's more on a per case basis, and at scale, one iPad doesn't matter. I don't know if that answers the question.
Especially if you get them on a plan, like we just get them on data plans, and they're £23 a month. Like,
I have a question about the permanent installs. Do you know of any programs that allow you to monetize when the system is just sitting there, and where the location I'm working at is the Fort Lauderdale Airport, wants to have them on the wall for the cruises, but
pay per use?
The money back. So
yes, so most software can. Breeze definitely can. I helped a San Diego boother install a permanent kiosk at FEO Schwartz in Rockefeller Center, and he uses Breeze can now do a credit card terminal that you can buy that waits for payment exception before it moves forward in the process. If you have something like that you want, Steve's the kind of guy who can program that and offers those kind of services for sure. But it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
what about not the consumer buying, but having like an ad for a hotel, so the people choose to stay for this hotel before?
Yeah.
Is there like a running ad program?
There's not, to my knowledge, but you may be able to put that into the front end of Breeze.
Yeah, I think you could do that with Breeze. Yeah.
I'm confused by it just shows an ad.
Yeah, we can run a slide like a standby mode.
Oh,
you can just switch the ads out.
That's the way you do it, right? So I don't know if you're the one selling it, or if the airport is the one selling it, but yeah, you just would run video feed. And think of it as running a photo, right? It's no different than selling the logo placement on the photo.
I mean, some of these things you have to go seek out the solution, research. It's like you're probably not going to find
Where
an
there's money, there's a way.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm curious to know what you guys use for software.
I use Breeze nearly exclusively for everything. Yeah.
I just go down the line.
Whatever needs.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So do you have several different softwares?
Yeah, normally if they come to me with a set of work, so Steve actually, I met Steve for the first time 3 years ago, and I watched one of Steve's shows, and or one of his talks, sorry. And the first thing he said that resonated with me is read the fucking manual.
Yeah.
Like, if you get any software before you buy it, they've got a support document. Read it. from one end to the other, and you'll know what it can do. And then you can find the right software. Even if I haven't used it, I know the Breeze can do it.
Yeah,
then
that's
I can
right.
say yes, and I can work it out later.
You don't necessarily need to know how to do it, just know that it can do it.
And I always use Fire Festival as an example of, like, everyone knows it. If he had pulled it off, it would be a different story, right? So you can fake it till you make it as long as it's within your realm of possibility. And knowing the software is available and having people, like, I think anyone up here on the stage, you can reach out to any of us and ask a question. And I know I reach out to Zach and ask questions. Steve's on a different time zone.
Yeah.
Just don't pigeonhole yourself into one software. Like, I use Breeze with a DSLR and iPad in most of my kiosks, but then I use LA Photo Party when I need to do something like really immersive. That's easier to set up than Breeze would because I'm not as savvy as Steve is. I mean, 360, I've used anything from Snappic to Zentek to PBU to, and now I'm with Zangle for doing a video project next week. Client comes to me, says what they want, I find the software that can do it. I don't like to ever say no because there's something that can do it. I'll usually find a bug in that software along the way that holds me back, but there's always a way.
So what software do you use?
Across the board, everything that everyone's said so far. I use Snappic, I use LA Photo Party, Breeze is all main for my teams.
The answer to all of them, right? Oftentimes people ask about which software is the best, which booth is the best, and it doesn't really matter. Like, as long as you can do what your client wants, what you need to do, the client doesn't care what you use. They don't, like, people are asking about quality. Show of hands, had any of your clients complain about quality?
Like once.
So why are you so focused on it? Why was that the first type of question? Do they ask what software you use?
No.
So why is that the question?
We're asking you because you're in the industry and we're in the industry.
No, I mean, clients don't care what software you
What
use.
they want it to do, they don't care.
No, that's right.
So the conversation I have learned them all, know what they can do, and just find the software that can do the result.
There's some very affordable software that can do almost everything as well, too. So you don't need, depending on the types of things you're doing, you may not need to invest in an enterprise license to Snappic, right? There's
Luma Boost is really cheap
there's
option.
like, I think there's one that's like $19. You buy it once through the iOS store and that's it. And if it does what you need to do, great. Like, so.
There's a conversation I have with a lot of new photo booth owners and small photo booth owners specifically, and it comes back to what you were saying earlier. How do you get out of those backyard parties? And it is that we get taught in this industry that you need to sell your booth, which is the weirdest thing I've ever heard. Like, and I've had a conversation probably with multiple people in this room of like, if you buy a workman to do some work at your house, you're not interested in what hammer he's using. Like, you're interested in that at the end of the project, you're going to get what you want.
Right.
And if you're selling that as a concept, as opposed to selling what booth you're going to use or what software you're going to use, then you're not price comparable with somebody else. Because you're not saying my booth can print this quickly, or my booth can do this, or my booth can do that. You're saying, when you book me, I'm going to give you the experience that you need. Your guests are going to get what they need, and you can't price compare that.
Just remember, you have to also spend money to make money. I have stuff that I use once a year, but when I use it that one time, it's paid for itself. I mean, I bought a Prism photo booth that I've used 3 times in 4 years, but I've made over $10,000 with it. It's just like, don't be afraid to invest and buy a tool. I mean, I'm doing my taxes on the plane on the way here, and I had over 200 grand in expenses this year. And like, that would make me hurl 10 years ago, but now it's like, A, it lowers my taxable income down, and B, I get new equipment to sell.
There's so be afraid to work with other people as well. Like,
Yeah.
I don't own a 360 booth, but I've done a lot of 360 events. I don't own a Mosaic, but I've done a lot of Mosaic events. I know someone in my area that has it, and I've just struck up a deal with him where I've got a bit of equipment that he wants, he's got a bit of equipment that I want, and we just say, hey, if this comes up, can I rent it from you? Yeah. No, I rent the
equipment from
the
him.
equipment
Okay,
from you.
right,
So
okay.
I just said, if you're free on a Monday to Friday on this, how much is it? On a Saturday, Sunday, how much is it? and if it's free, I can
Yeah.
do it.
I mean, I had a client.
You're getting the
Oh,
wind.
is that the cutoff?
You're getting the
Right.
wind up.
Just was gonna say, I have a client that wanted to do ID cards, and I wasn't gonna spend $3,000 on an ID card printer, so I found someone in Florida, a friend of ours, that had one. He mailed it to me. He didn't charge me. He just.
Someone on their coffee dipper back?
Quick question, you said
Doesn't seem very COVID safe.
Here, they're moms. They have limited amount of time. They can't learn every software program out there. So what would you suggest for them when they get a request for something that is outside of what they have the time to be able to accomplish? What would you do?
I guess white label it then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when
Or put the kid in daycare.
Spoken like someone who has no kids.
Bad response. He's not a dad.
I'm not a dad. Just a daddy. That's the note.
Before I became a mother, I had all the time in the world. I designed stand-up like booths that had, the fully enclosed ones. I worked with developers. I did everything, and I had so much time for it. But then when I became a mom, everything changed. Even though my kid was in school or kid was in daycare, I still didn't have the kind of time that I once had because I couldn't stay up all night long working and still be a parent too. So a lot of times women are stuck in this situation where they just don't have that kind of flexibility with their time. It's not about spending the money to make the money, it's about spending the time to make the money.
And I think this goes back to like what you enjoy doing. And I think if you're happy selling events and connecting people, the white label is a really, really great way to do that. Have people in your market that you know do things well and you share in the profits with them. The flip side of that is when I first started doing this, I loved working the events more than anything and figuring out those problems. So I think that you can solve problems, but it doesn't necessarily solve for what you want to be doing. So
your suggestion is to figure out what you want to do.
right. So if you want to be on the sales side of things, or if you want to be the programmer that's actually spending your time learning that software, you can link up with someone who's really good at sales and say, hey, I came up with a new way to use Breeze. Like, can you sell it through your company? Look, and we'll both make money on it. So I think that it's
collaboration.
Yeah, it's collaboration. I mean, as someone without kids, there's still not enough time to do everything, right? So, I don't know if that answers the specific question, but I think there's literally a limited amount of time, and how you spend it is what you have to decide.
The process that we use, Boothworks got quite a few customers, and there's only a tiny team, and we've got a process called DEA, which is Delegate, Eliminate, Automate. So if we don't want to do something, we have to do one of those three things. We have to give it to someone else to do. So Fiverr, people per hour, or a partner that we know. If not, we don't do it. We eliminate it and see what happens. Or we automate it. So we set up something that's going to do it for us.
Yeah, good. And on that note, yeah, well said. That's how